The raising of interest rates affects our economy. Not only does it increase the cost that you pay for your mortgage, it also just generally destimulates the economy. This could lead to higher unemployment, and it just might lead to a recession. Now, the Federal Reserve is doing this because it says it has to. The economy is overstimulated. And it says specifically workers' wages is what's causing the economy to be overstimulated. But let's think about this. If workers' wages are rising and that's a problem that requires the economy to be destimulated, then can workers' wages ever rise? I don't like that answer. So I would like to see if there is an alternative reason. And is it really that simple? Because in my last video, I mentioned there's all these other reasons being blamed for inflation. So why is the Federal Reserve specifically focusing on workers' wages? So I can't answer that question. Why is it fixated on the workers' wages? But here's what I will try to go into in this video. Is there reason to doubt the Fed's justification? Is there reason to doubt that the Fed's real motive to increase the interest rates is because of workers' wages? Or is there an ulterior motive? Hello, I'm the Knight of the Basilisk. The first reason why I suspect the Fed is blaming workers' wages on inflation is pure deflection. That's right, it's deflection. So here's the thing. In my last video, I mentioned all these reasons for inflation, and I said those really aren't the question we should be asking. The question we should be asking is, why wasn't inflation occurring in 2020? And one thing I didn't mention in that video is one reason why why inflation should have been really high in 2020 is because almost a fifth of all U.S. dollars were created in 2020. By the end of 2020, 1/5 of all dollars in creation at the end of 2020 were created in that year. And the reason why I didn't mention that in my last video, why didn't I mention that in the, hey, why wasn't there inflation in 2020 video, is because upon doing the research, I got all these different statistics, and I really just, I didn't know what to believe. But then I came across a source that helped me settle this. So in the description below, I will link some articles. The first one is, the one that said 1/5 of all U.S. dollars were created. Then that link to another article that I will also put in the description. And this other link is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And this is seemingly continuously updated. And basically it shows the M2 per year. I put a third link in the description below defining what the M2 is, and basically all three of these articles together basically state, yeah, the Fed pumped a lot of money into the economy in 2020. So the Fed itself might be responsible for the inflation, and so it's probably trying to blame workers. One thing to note is it's hard to really put a good correlation on this. See, one of the other reasons why I didn't mention this in my last video is because when the Fed pumps money into the economy, it's not like it just like it sends someone driving down the street with a briefcase and just throwing money out the window. No, it's not like that. So the Federal Reserve is a banker's bank. It's a bank for other banks. So let's say you're a local bank. You borrow $10 from the Federal Reserve. You have to pay it back $11. But the rate you pay the Fed back is not the rate that people pay you, the local bank, back. So let's say someone takes a $10 loan out from you. They pay you $12 with the interest rate. And then when you pay the Fed back, you pay them back $11. So when you borrow $10 from the Fed and loaned it to someone else, you got it back from that. You got payment back from that person, and then pay the Fed back. You made $1 profit. It's very simplistic math, I know, but basically, it's hard to time. Hey, this injection of money into the economy led to inflation here because there's a delay. So, okay, yeah, this is a little hard to pin the specific money printing in 2020 to today's inflation. However, I mean, come on, it added so much money to the economy in 2020. How does it not lead to inflation, all right? Here's the other reason why the Fed is blaming workers' wages on inflation is there's something called the Phillips curve. I encourage you to look this up on your own. I mean, I'm not going to link a definition of the Phillips curve in the description. Just look it up yourself. But basically, the Phillips curve is this calculation. Think of it like this. If the economy is doing well, inflation occurs. And one way that the Fed looks at whether the economy is doing well or not is, are wages increasing? And if wages are growing too much, it leads to inflation. Now, this is like a calculation. So in the past, the Fed has noticed if workers' wages increases, inflation increases. And that's like an economic theory that's held for decades. So even though wage growth isn't the only indicator in prosperity or an indicator that the economy is being stimulated, the Phillips curve suggests that the Fed's role is to keep wages low. It's as if the Fed is intending to keep wages low. Like its purpose is to keep wages low, because in doing that, it does its main job of keeping inflation in check. So that's just a general thing the Fed does. But basically, it's blaming workers' wages because for decades it's blamed workers' wages and it's been justified. However, here's a reason why I question that. Back in mid-2019, the Fed chairman himself said the link between inflation and unemployment is gone. And he didn't say workers' wages, but he said unemployment. But basically, it's the same thing. Like, do workers have money? Are they making money, basically? Because, with lower unemployment, that's generally mean people are doing better. And people are more prosperous in low unemployment times than high unemployment times. So, okay. And then he said, this seemed to be an outdated theory, blah, blah, blah. And then I think it seems like the equation itself changed. Like, the way the economy works seems to change. Like, there really just seems to be no relation between how well the worker is doing and how much the worker contributes to inflation. So it seems like the Phillips curve was declared dead, but now he seems to be doing a take-backsies. So the Fed chairman is now saying workers' wages are contributing to the economy, even after he said they stopped. So is there like new data to indicate that workers' wages are now contributing to inflation? I'm going to put two more links in the description below. And one is called the Nominal Wage Tracker. Basically, it says that the year-over-year rate for wages, that is, like right now, if you take wages and compare them to what they were a year ago, they are 5.1% higher. Just to clarify, this is the nominal wage tracker, so this is nominal wages not adjusted for inflation. I am also going to put another link in the description. It's called the Historical Inflation Rates. I think this is one I linked in my last video. But basically, year-over-year inflation for end of November for November 2022 is 7.1%. So inflation is going up quicker than wages. Not only that, there was this time about a few months ago where Elizabeth Warren, or Senator Elizabeth Warren, was putting the Fed chairman on the hot spot and asking questions. And said, "Hey, Mr. Chairman, could you please explain how much corporate profits are contributing to inflation?" And the Fed chairman said 54%, I think he said. Again, I'm not linking in the description. I didn't watch it recently, but you can look it up yourself. Elizabeth Warren questioning the Federal Reserve chairman. So 54% of inflation is not related to workers' wages. Why the specific focus on workers' wages? I'm also going to link two videos, and these are videos where an economist named Peter Zeihan, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Peter Zeihan explained in these two videos why inflation has been low over the past years. It's because of certain market forces. So China's labor being available to the labor pool, baby boomers being a large generation, and a large amount of people being added to the workforce, during the time they were becoming adults. And when the USSR fell, there was a load of cheap materials and cheap capital that was available to the world. That kept inflation in check. Now, even the cost of doing business in China has increased, so China is not as cheap as it used to be. The baby boomers are retiring, and the fall of the USSR is 30 years behind us. So now natural market forces are contributing to inflation. and this is what Peter Zeihan discussed in his 2 videos, even though the topic of the 2 videos was something else, he happens to mention these 2 things. You might have to dig through the video to actually get to that part where he mentions those facts. So, natural market forces are contributing to inflation. And the Fed, and yet the Fed is blaming workers' wages. However, natural market forces for decades has been suppressing wages and inflation, suppressing inflation, but also suppressing wages, the cost of hiring workers, because of the supply of workers being disproportionate to the demand for the supply of jobs. Therefore, the demand that workers have for jobs is more than demand than the employers have for employees. So that kept workers' wages in check. But now that natural forces are going to increase workers' wages, the Fed has to come in and stop that. I don't like that. So that's why I do not like the Fed blaming workers' wages on inflation, or justifying the increase, justifying the need to destimulate the economy because workers' wages have increased. Workers are making too much money, therefore we have to destimulate the economy. Well, geez. It's not like when natural forces kept wages low, we said, oh, we need to correct that and increase wages. No, it only seems to go one way. And now, in addition to that, I'm going to link one more video in the description below. It is from a channel called Breaking Points. Basically, there's the host have a guest on, and the guest speaker says that the Fed's purpose is to decrease people's wages. Like, the Fed does have an ulterior motive of keeping wages suppressed. As if, keeping inflation secondary, it's really, the real purpose is just to keep workers disempowered. I'll link that in the video, but I'm not going to elaborate into that. But I mean, I'm not going to justify anything this guy says or defend it. It's just something, this channel is more to stimulate discussion more than to cite hard facts. I'm not an official economist myself. It's just, I don't think that should stop me from trying to contribute to the discourse. Of course, that discourse cannot occur here because I disabled the comments in my video, but feel free to have it somewhere else. Anyways, I just found it suspicious that the Fed is blaming specifically workers' wages for inflation when you have supply chain issues. You have other reasons in addition to just supply chain issues. So, anyways, I'm just gonna say, yeah, we should have more discussion we should have more of a discussion around the Fed's decision and whether it's justified in saying workers' wages is contributing to inflation. Anyways, I'm the Knight of the Basilisk. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you later.